G'day YouTube, welcome back to my channel Bonsai Works. I'm going to keep it very simple today, especially if you've got a bonsai or a more slightly advanced tree that is in need of a repot. This is just the process to follow. This is a trident maple. It's quite nice. It's in a nice Japanese pot already. It's been in this pot for 2 years. I always give my trees deciduous 2 years in a pot before I repot. Just found that the first year after I repot, they just plod along, but then the second year they kind of explode in growth, which is great. And then it's time to repot because the soil will be too condensed and too dense for me to get water into it, and eventually the roots are so tough it's hard to cut them back. So today I'm just going to take you through a simple exercise of repotting this tree and the process I follow. It's not necessarily, I don't know, I guess everyone has a different process, but this is my process. So some of the things I do before I even get started, just make sure you have got your tools ready. You need root shears, cut the roots. I've got wire here to tie the tree back into the pot. Just gin pliers to tighten the wire. I've got two types of root hooks. I've got looks like a bent screwdriver or something, and the 2-fork root hook that you see quite commonly. Just some nice sharp little scissors and a wire brush. Now, the only reason I use a wire brush is sometimes I like to scrape all the moss off the trunk. And I found this is really easy. You can use a toothbrush, which is fine, probably less abrasive, but this wire brush just destroys the moss. So kind of the first thing I do is clean the trunk just to see I don't want all the moss on there. I want to see the roots, what's my root spread like. Also start to eliminate the weeds if possible and throw them in the bin. Or obviously have your soil ready, or have your pre-mixed soil ready to go, all that kind of stuff. Did I say chopstick? Yeah, a chopstick ready as well to help you put the soil back in, place. So as I go around, I'm plucking all the roots off as well. I mean, plucking all the weeds off. There's a few here and there. You know, if you can be a little bit lazy like me, you miss those weeds that come out. And it's winter here, so I'm not really preoccupied too much with that happening. So this is a trident maple, and you'll see how aggressive I am with the roots of trident maples. They can handle it, especially in Melbourne conditions. They're quite tolerant of all the work we do, and I find it's quite, they respond really well. And I have had no issues with trident maples repotting them at all, ever, pretty much. Obviously, after you repot, just keep an eye on the water. You don't want to make it too moist. If it rains non-stop, then think about bringing them into shade. But in winter in Melbourne, surprisingly, we don't get much rain. We get mainly our rains in spring, early spring, and into mid-spring before it really starts to get warm. So it's a bit weird, our conditions, but it's a nice thing to have and understand the seasons here. Even though it's winter, it's freezing cold. We don't get much rain. So also, you've got to keep an eye on your trees not to let them dry out too in that condition. So whilst I was talking, I've been able to clear most of that scrub away. So gave a nice little clean job. I cut the wire that was tying the pot into place. Now sometimes I try and lift and it won't come out. So I try and lift, but it won't come out. So I just try and get my root hook and run around the edge of the pot as best I can, not to damage the pot. I'm on the inside of the pot, and that sounds terrible, but I am on the inside of the pot. This pot has a slight lip. That's probably causing why the tree not to come easily out of the pot. So I've done most of it. Let's see if it can come out now. Oh, still doesn't want to budge. Oh, there we go. Nice and easy now. I'm trying to get this out. Oh, there we go. Now, it's not too bad. I've had trees with way more roots than that, but this is pretty good. Root mass, and I'll go through the process of how I clean this out. Just got to get my rubbish ready so I can put all this away. So let me get that all sorted. Just so you can see, I've cleaned the pot out in terms of the soil. I don't mind washing it. I don't really necessarily wash it. I just make sure there's no roots in the holes and get rid of it. Good news is all the mesh stayed on. So usually you don't get that. Usually the mesh comes off. Now it's a matter of process of combing as much of these roots out at the top. You can use either the root hook or this one. I like sometimes this one if it's a bit looser, so it seems to come out pretty well. I just have something to collect all the rubbish on the bottom, just so I don't have to make such a mess. So you go through, just quickly go around. I just like to quickly go around initially just to break it up. Because these roots are right almost to the edge of the pot, you don't have too many small side roots. They're mainly underneath. If you see weeds, eliminate. The more important is underneath, so you really want to get into this. Sometimes the soil just falls off, which is good. Other times it's quite dense. So comb it out. Now the old soil, I always get asked the question, what do you do with the old soil? It usually goes into the garden. So if you've got a garden bed or anything like that, just put it in the garden bed. Don't reuse it, because it's got all the whatever happens to it and so on. Unless you really want to start to sift and eliminate all the organic, and just keep the pumice. I got pumice in here, so I could probably keep the pumice if I want to really recycle. Otherwise, yeah, you got to eliminate it. So let's get into it now. Yeah, I'm being quite aggressive because I know how much these type tridents can tolerate Melbourne conditions. I think they can tolerate anything that's reasonable weather. They're pretty hardy and strong, and really good to grow. Now, I think I've given this tree a really good hack last time. That's why probably not as crazy amount of roots as I thought it would have. Maybe I repotted it last year. Can't remember now. Maybe a good idea to make a note of when you repot as well with the trees. So now that I've done a quick rough job of that, usually I take a bit longer, but the video, I don't want it to go forever. So I start to cut back any of the roots that are too outside the periphery of the root ball. Sometimes you find big ones, so you really got to get into those big ones. You only want the fine feeder roots now. The big roots are nice at the top, but you don't need big roots, heavy roots in the soil. What you need in the soil is the fine feeder roots. The other thing is try and hold up your tree so that when you make the cuts, they're flat to the ground. So it helps with so eliminate a lot of that root that goes into the compost or into the recycle bin or green waste. Now I've got it to that point. The next step is pretty much one where I think is really important is you've got to wash the soil, wash all as much as you can off the soil surface, because all the fine particles are still in here. Now I'm going to go away and wash it, and then I'll show you how different it looks. So if you have a look right now how it looks like, wait until I come back and you can see the difference. Now I've washed the tree and I'm letting it settle of the water, but the next thing I do while that's doing that is I prepare the pot. All I really do is you can be very take the extra precaution of having a lot of wires to tie in the tree, but I usually just get away with one wire. And I always put it to the back of the tree. So I picked this as the front of the pot at the moment. I like it. It's a nice texture. You can have the other side, but it's usually just a matter of choice. Sometimes there might be a scratch on one side or something like that, or the glaze is much nicer on this side than that side. So if that's the front of the pot, then I've chosen it. Then I just pretty much, with this tree, I like to wire it in this to this end rather than this way to this way. I find this way to this way holds because the width of the pot provides more strength when you're wiring. Well, that's what I find anyway. So I thread it through if there was wire holes, I'd thread it through that, but these are just drainage holes. I use something like 2mm aluminium wire. And I thread it through. So it's about even, and it will be wide towards the back of the pot. So the roots at the back will get the wire, not the front, because the front you want to see the beautiful roots and so on. So that's the first bit. Now I'll grab my soil and I'll make a mound. So I'm just going to grab the soil. So I just spread it to the ends first before I make a mound more towards somewhere around the middle. Somewhere around the middle. I'm trying to think where the tree is going to be positioned. So a little bit more. And just make a little bit of a mound somewhere around the middle-ish, even though it's not going to be in the middle. So I'm going to grab the tree. Now, I showed you the tree before. Now you can actually see much more in depth. There's a nice big crevice in the middle of the pot, and you can actually see more things that you can comb out. You can see a bit of root here and there. You can see things happening, maybe a heavy root there we can eliminate with knob cutters or branch cutters. Let's get that too heavy to have. So you start to eliminate a lot of things now. You can see much more clearly. See how nice and fibrous the root system is, and it's quite good. Now it's a matter of picking the front. Now, I was going to slightly adjust this tree because there's a really nice base all the way around here. You can see quite nicely, especially this bit here. So I just want to slightly adjust it. Now, once I'm happy with the front and I can see roughly, you also want to get whether the tree's straight or slightly to the other side. And I start to really work the tree into that soil mix that I created. Slightly off center. Now I've noticed it's slightly tilting this way, so I've got to probably get a bit more soil underneath in this area. So I'll just get some soil, a bit more soil, put it on that side, and just put it underneath this section to prop it up, sorry. Until you're happy with it. A bit more probably. It's all slight things now, just little slight variations. And now I'll keep it, giving it a good wiggle. And now it's pretty tightly into that pot, but you can see the roots, and we'll deal with that in a minute. Now I'm going to the back of the tree. And sometimes you can thread it through the roots and so on and so forth, but I really want the tree to hold on top because I find that this big root here is nice and established. So I'll just tighten it with my gin pliers. Don't go too hard because it's aluminium, you might snap it. So just give enough pressure just to hold it. Okay, cut the excess wire off. All right, now we're pretty good, pretty set. That's pretty firm in there as well, nice and easy. So now continue loading up my soil. I put it in lots of, I put a lot in there because what I'm going to do is work it all into the roots. So once you start doing that, you put a whole bunch in, and then you get your chopstick and you just start working with your fingers and chopstick all that loose soil into all the holes and crevices. So you keep doing that until you pretty much get through it all. I'm on this side, I have to get more soil and do the rest. So you can put the soil on the whole thing and then do this, or as I'm doing bit by bit, is a good idea too. No right or wrong, it's just what I do. Work your way through and keep going the process until you're all done. So that's pretty much the repot done with the soil. I sometimes give it a good tap just to let the soil all settle in. Now it just needs to be watered, left back on the bench where it belongs. That's it. So it goes back to the same spot it came from in the garden. Nothing different. Just keep an eye on it in terms of how much rain we get and how much water it gets. It's really that simple. The tree will survive really well. I don't touch the foliage. I don't touch this. You can start trimming back. I haven't done that yet. I need to spend a bit more time on this tree to be happy with the positioning of a lot of the branching. So I'm just going to keep trying to fix a lot of these triangular issues with my trees. I want to do a bit more making more look like deciduous trees rather than triangular trees. So I'm slowly fixing that up as much as I can. And you would have seen that in the video with Stephen Cullum on my channel, the way I'm slowly trying to fix it. I'm having branches that go in from here going upwards and different angles. I just got to change it up a bit. But when you're wide deciduous trees, it can cause, a lot of work for only a tiny bit of time with the wire on it, because they grow so much that the wire starts to cut in. So you just got to be careful of a few things like that. That's why I don't want to rush doing the design work on this tree. It's all about repotting, get it repotted and get it watered and so on. Fertilizer, don't have to really apply anything just yet. I usually put some slow release on top, and that's it pretty much. Slow release fertilizer on top, a bit closer to when spring is coming, just so it can start to feed the tree. But all in all, that's it. Hope you guys saw how easy that was to repot an advanced tree. I will look at doing some how to repot young trees and young stock, so look out for that video coming up. But all in all, there you go. Pretty easy to do. Don't be scared, just do it.